If you've ever, just sat and watched a backyard bird feeder with all the finches and sparrows and chickadees flying in, you might think it's a really tranquil, almost quiet scene.
Right. Just a bunch of birds getting a free meal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But is that what's really happening?
Not at all. I mean, what you're actually observing is it's a highly structured, surprisingly brutal little society. It's governed by this incredibly complex set of rules.
A tiny avian battleground.
That's a perfect way to put it. It's a place where social status, local knowledge, even a bird's personality determines who gets to eat and who goes hungry.
And that's exactly what we're going to get into today. This is a deep dive into the science that has finally started to crack the code of who wins the fight for the sunflower seeds. And it's so much more than just the biggest bird wins.
Oh, way beyond that.
Yeah.
And what's just incredible is that we have all this knowledge thanks to one of the biggest citizen science projects ever. It's called Project Feeder Watch.
A huge collaboration, right, between the Cornell Lab of Ornithology and Birds Canada.
A massive one. It's been running for over 35 years.
Wow.
And it's all powered by regular people just watching their feeders.
The amount of data they've generated is just staggering. It's fueled, more than 45 major research papers, all because people like you are just reporting what they see. It's truly revolutionary data.
It is, because it lets scientists see these behavioral interactions on a scale that was, impossible before. And the first huge breakthrough from this came back in 2017.
Okay.
A study led by Elliot Miller. He was the first one to really use this data to formally analyze what they called displacement interactions.
Which is just a scientific way of saying one bird chasing another away.
Exactly. Bird A shows up, bird B leaves. And from that simple observation, they created the first ever formal, scientifically rigorous dominance hierarchy ranking for North American backyard birds. That was the foundation.
Okay, so let's unpack that foundational idea because it all seems to come down to one thing: conserving energy.
It absolutely does. When Elliot Miller's team looked at this, the core logic for the birds became really clear. Every single decision is a cost-benefit analysis.
About aggression.
Exactly. If you're a tiny animal living moment to moment, you have to minimize conflict. Fighting uses up a huge amount of energy you need for warmth, for flight, and it can be dangerous. You can get injured.
So if you know you're lower on the pecking order, you don't want a long, drawn-out fight. You know you're going to lose anyway.
You can't afford it. You need to know the hierarchy immediately so you can just, back off gracefully, save your energy, and try again later.
And that's what they were tracking, not like big brawls, but just that tiny moment of
displacement. That's the dominance interaction. One bird asserts itself, the other one yields the spot. That simple interaction is the whole data point.
So the 2017 study was huge because it established the baseline of who generally wins.
Right. But then, of course, the next question for scientists was, why?
What causes those wins and losses? And that leads us to the newer, really fascinating stuff about social relationships.
And this is where it gets really counterintuitive. Because you'd probably assume, like most people, that if you roll up to the feeder with a big flock of your friends,
strength in numbers, you'd be more protective, more dominant.
That's what I would have thought. But a huge study in 2023 from Rosalind Dakin at Carleton University, it used 6.1 million of these feeder watch observations to completely flip that idea on its head.
6.1 million.
I know. And they looked at 55,000 of those specific dominance interactions to see if a bird's social tendency, whether it's usually alone or in a crowd, affected its chances of winning.
So they split the birds into two basic groups.
Two behavioral groups. First, you have the social butterflies. These are the birds you almost always see in groups.
Okay.
Think finches, juncos, house sparrows.
And the others?
They call them the lone wolves. These are birds that are much more likely to be solitary, they keep to themselves. Woodpeckers, nuthatches, that kind of bird.
And the result was surprising, to say the least.
It was shocking. The lone wolves were actually among the most likely to displace other birds, to assert dominance.
So birds like the white-breasted nuthatch or the red-bellied woodpecker?
Exactly. They don't seem to need a group. Their solitary nature, their focus, seems to give them an edge. You can almost see it when you watch them.
How so?
Well, think about a nuthatch. It's all intense focus and these quick, jerky movements. And a red-bellied woodpecker, it's a pretty confident, solitary eater. It shows up, it focuses on the food, and it just holds its ground.
Okay, but what about the social butterflies then? Like American goldfinches or house sparrows? You're saying they were more likely to flee?
Yes. Especially when they were up against an opponent of a similar size, they were much more likely to just give up the spot and fly off.
So what is it about being social that makes them fold so easily?
It seems to point to a downside of being in a group. I mean, being social is fantastic for spotting predators, but it might be terrible for individual focus during one of these showdowns.
So the group dynamic itself can hurt an individual's performance.
Profoundly. Sometimes for the better, but often for the worse.
Okay, so give me an example of when the group actually helps.
The point siskin is the perfect case study. It's a classic social butterfly, pretty low on the totem pole usually.
Right.
The data showed when a pine siskin visits a feeder by itself, it almost always loses. It retreats.
Okay.
But when that same bird shows up in a group of, say, 5 siskins,
Let me guess. It gets bolder.
its individual success rate in those one-on-one conflicts doubled.
Wow, so they have backup, they feel safer, they're more willing to risk a little scuffle. The group empowers them.
That's the idea. That feeling of safety lets the individual be more assertive. But, and this is where it gets really weird, that whole dynamic flips on its head when you look at the northern cardinal.
Cardinal, I mean, that's a bird that definitely looks dominant. It's big, it's bright red.
It is. And it's usually a lone wolf, preferring to eat alone or maybe in a pair.
So what happens when they break character and show up in a crowd?
Their performance plummets. The study found that when cardinals visited in groups, they became significantly less successful in feeder showdowns against other species.
Wait, that makes no sense at all. Why would a bird as bold as a cardinal get weaker with friends around? Shouldn't more cardinals mean more power?
This is where Dakin's theory about distraction and attention comes in. She suggests that sometimes the cost of being social just outweighs the benefit.
How?
Well, a cardinal's normal strength is its intense individual focus on getting that seed. But when they're in a group, they might be spending critical moments just paying attention to each other.
Ah, so they're worried about their own internal social cues, who's who in their little cardinal group.
Exactly. They're focusing on their group mates, which makes them less vigilant about an external threat, like a bold nuthatch or a chickadee suddenly swooping in.
They're mentally checked out of the fight with the other species. It's like being deep in conversation with your friends and not noticing someone cut in line in front of you.
That's the perfect analogy. Their social brain is turned on, so their competitive brain is turned off. That's a huge insight.
Okay, so we've got a bird's internal state, its focus, its sense of safety dictating the outcome. But what about the history between the birds? Does it matter if they know each other?
Yes, absolutely, because the history of their confrontations is just as important as size or focus. Do these two birds see each other every day? Do they already know the score?
And that question was at the heart of another more recent study from 2024. This one was led by Gavin Layton at Buffalo State University.
Right, and they looked at over 1,500 interactions across more than 100 species in the feeder watch data, asking a really simple question. What happens when a new face shows up in the neighborhood?
To get this, we need to know a term they use, right? Syntopic species.
Right, it's a simple concept. It just means pairs of species that usually overlap in space and time. They're your routine neighbors. They see each other at the same feeder every single day.
And what the study found just beautifully reinforces that core idea of energy conservation we started with.
It really does. Layton's team found that these syntopic species, the routine neighbors, they fight way less than you would expect.
So you see chickadees and goldfinches and juncos all crammed onto a feeder, shoulder to shoulder, and they're mostly avoiding serious fights.
Because they've already established the local hierarchy. They know the rules. They know who's boss.
It's like knowing the neighborhood bully's routine. You don't have to go pick a fight every morning just to confirm they're still the bully. You see them, you nod, and you go about your day.
That's a great way to think about it. It's a learned truce. And the energy savings are tremendous. If you're a junco and you know you're subordinate to the blue jay, you just leave the second the blue jay shows up.
No posturing, no fighting.
No energy wasted. But the real proof is in the contrast. Layton found that when you get unfamiliar species together, pairs that are not usually at the same feeder, they fight more than expected.
The hierarchy isn't set.
It has to be negotiated from scratch, right then and there, every single time. The example they gave was clashes between, say, a familiar chickadee and a less common visitor, like a yellow-rumped warbler.
That sounds incredibly stressful and energy-intensive for both of them.
It is. The subordinate bird doesn't know what to expect, and the dominant bird has to waste energy proving its rank over and over. This idea of a familiarity advantage saves energy for everyone.
So even the top dog benefits because it doesn't have to constantly put on a show.
Exactly. It's this silent, instantaneous negotiation happening at your window.
Which is just a brilliant realization. All this deep, nuanced social science is coming from regular people just, filling out a form about what they see at their feeder.
It really just hammers home the power of these huge citizen science projects. As Emma Gregg, the project leader at Cornell, said, this isn't just about counting birds anymore.
Right.
It's providing direct observations of behavior, which she called really fantastic data for understanding how birds relate to each other under different pressures.
And the research isn't stopping. Now they're adding another layer, right? How the environment itself can come in and just break all these carefully established rules.
That's the crucial next step. We know conflict is about saving energy, but what happens when outside factors just dramatically raise the stakes?
Okay, like what?
Well, Gavin Layton is now looking at whether harsh weather, like a huge blizzard or a bitter cold snap, makes it more likely that a subordinate bird will actually stand its ground and resist an attack.
So desperation could overturn the whole social order.
Potentially. If the cost of fleeing is certain starvation, that calculation completely changes. A bird might risk a dangerous fight that it would normally avoid at all costs. Survival's on the line.
And Rosalind Dakin is looking at something similar, but with group size.
She's asking how weather affects group dynamics. Does a cold snap force the lone wolves to huddle together? Or does it make the social butterflies scatter in a desperate individual search for food?
It connects everything from the one-on-one interaction at the feeder to these massive macro-level pressures like climate.
It shows this is a living, breathing field of study. It's all connected.
So to pull this all together for you, the listener, the next time you're looking at your feeder, the big aha moment is that dominance is not just about size. It's not just the biggest beak.
Not at all. It's heavily influenced by a bird's personality. Is it a lone wolf or a social butterfly? And is it alone or is it distracted by its own friends?
And maybe the biggest takeaway of all, familiarity breeds peace. Birds that know the local rules fight way less, saving that critical energy. The real conflicts flare up when a stranger comes to town.
And the rules have to be rewritten from scratch.
So here's a final thought for you to chew on, something that builds on this new research. If extreme cold or a bad storm makes food that much more critical, will a bird that usually flees, the subordinate one, risk a dangerous fight just to eat?
How much does desperation change the rules of the game? We're still learning, but it just shows that even the most stable pecking order can be broken by the cold, hard reality of survival.